Okay, I'd like to say welcome everybody. I'm here, my name is Christopher Davies and I'm here in Denver, Colorado. And I'm the organizer of the Denver International Wine Festival, which regretfully could not happen this year because of COVID. But hopefully next year or 2022, we'll be back in action once everything is safe. And one of our biggest supporters and most highly awarded wineries in our annual competition is Coyote Canyon Winery. And they are located in Prosser, Washington, in the Horse Heaven Hills appellation. And we're excited to have Justin, the winemaker, here, and Mike, the proprietor. And we're going to do a virtual tasting between Denver and Washington and all around the country, including other people here in Colorado that are joining us. So cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers. I don't have a glass, but thumbs up.
Thumbs up. So Justin, do you guys want to talk a little bit about the winery first, or should we jump into a sip?
Yeah, so anyway, hello. Thank you for having us, and welcome everybody to our virtual tasting. I'm Justin, winemaker here at Coyote Canyon Winery, and I've been here since 2013. So this is, the 2020, this COVID year has got us doing all kinds of new inventive ways of trying to connect with people. And this is one of them, doing a little virtual tasting. So we're excited. Like Christopher was mentioning, we have been participating in the Denver Wine Awards, at least back
almost 15 years.
Where's your camera?
And we are excited to share some of our wines, talk a little bit about history, a little bit about winemaking. And so we're going to start off. Mike's going to give you a little brief history, but we know it's 5 o'clock in Denver. It's 4 o'clock here. We're all ready to taste a little wine. So we've kind of got your wine wheel set up. And this is just a, suggestion, but we'll kind of go through the tasting pattern. We'll do our rosé, Albarino, and then we'll move into to the reds. So we'll let Mike take it away here, talk a little bit about it, and then I'll come back and tell you about how we made the Barbera rosé. But I will pour a little bit here and start to smell. I always love the Barbera as the varietal because it just brings a lot of bright red fruit, I pick up a lot of strawberry. You guys sniff this, taste this. Let's hear from Mike for a second, and then we'll come back and see if you guys have any feelings about it. I'll tell you a little bit more about the Barbera Rosé.
Hey, folks. Yes, this is exciting. How we started going to Denver, believe it or not, we were in the cattle business back as I was growing up, and we used to go to Denver every year to the Denver International Stock Show. And we loved that show. I never thought I would get out of the cattle business, but I wanted to share that right off. So we selected going to Denver because it kind of just fit down the line of what we had done in the past, the many years that we went to that show. We had, that was a tough competition. We had a lot of times 20 to 40 animals in the class, and if we placed in the top, or when we did get a first place, we were pretty proud. But anyway, our family has farmed in Washington State for 129 years. That's a long time. And wow. We've been in the Horse Heaven Hills for about 80 years. My grandfather came to the Horse Heaven from the Walla Walla area. That's where they were. They actually were on some of the ground that, if you've ever heard of Woodward Canyon, the Small family has, that's actually some of the ground that they once farmed before they went to the Horse Heaven. He was a tenant farmer, farming for other farmers, and he broke much land from the Horse Heaven. And so he went to the Horse Heaven in the mid-30s, around like in about 41, believe it or not, that's when World War II broke out. So before he could ever get his own farm, what happened was that became a naval firing range. We have many stories to share from that period of time. And then in the mid 50s, my mom and dad got married and moved to the Horse Heaven in 1949. And I got lots of stories to share about all this at some other time. But the thing is that when they got to the Horse Heaven, everybody told them this was the driest country. He'd never make it on the piece of ground that he picked out when he finally purchased his own ground in 1941. So when the war was over, they were able to move back and start to farm. And I think their first crop was in around 47. Then he actually could see what they could do. And then it was dryland wheat. And in about 1954, they were drilling a domestic well. And believe it or not, they hit artesian water over 1,000 gallons a minute at a couple hundred feet. That's pretty hard to imagine.
Wow.
And with that, they were able to experiment in irrigated crops. And but the first thing they did was go to Denver. They went to Colorado Springs. There was a rancher there, Billy Ross. That's where they got their foundation herd for their livestock when they went into the registered Hereford business, believe it or not. And I grew up with those cattle, and that's what our family did for many years. And then along in the, as they got water, they did pasture, and then my dad did a lot of other crops too. When I got out of school, my goal was to take over the cattle business and be very successful in that. And what we did though was it became very expensive with all the high energy costs, and we weren't able to keep the cattle. My family had started planting grapes in 1980, believe it or not, clear back then. And in 81, or in the 94, is when I actually decided the cattle business wasn't working out. I sold most of them clear back in 82, but in 94, I took the spurge and planted my first wine grapes. We planted 20 acres of Cabernet. And with that Cabernet, it quickly became successful. And Justin or somebody's got to tell me when to pause, and then he'll take over, and we'll come back and tell more story about the history.
Yeah, so as Mike was kind of talking there, this family has a long history in Washington dealing with grape growing and agriculture and stuff. So it's an amazing place to work with the diversity of varietals that we have, and kind of the family connection going on here. So yeah, we are tasting the first wine there. Everybody's got it in the glass, hopefully. But yeah, I just love the color. We've definitely changed the style of our rosé over the years. I can have similar taste where we really like a lot of the acidity and that really, kind of braciness. But as wine goes, we all sort of enjoy different things. So we used to make our rosé in a sweeter, more kind of opulent style, and transition it into a little bit drier. So it's not completely bone dry, it's kind of in the off dry. We get about 0.5% of residual sugar. Kind of the whole idea behind a little bit of residual sugar in this Barbera is to balance that acid. But it does have a lot of acidity, but you do definitely get that very dry, crisp finish. It makes it a great summer wine and a really nice food kind of rosé as well. We made this something kind of interesting about 2019. We're going to show you in a minute here. We're going to walk into the back where we store some barrels, but we actually made this rosé in concrete tanks for a couple of weeks. And then we took it out of the concrete because we used the concrete for red wine and put this into stainless steel. So I do talk about a minerality component that we pick up out of these concrete tanks. And I think this vintage of our rosé is heightened. I really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, in 2020, I didn't have any space in the concrete, so it's just back to all stainless steel. But something kind of pretty unique about this year's vintage is that. Do you guys have any questions? Does anybody have anything they'd like to ask or any comments about the rosé before we move into the Albarino?
What kind of foods would you pair with this?
So I think like cheese plates are, obviously a safe option. Actually, I think it's kind of like a lighter meat, like a pork. you're looking for some food or something, kind of a nice little meet there. We're past Thanksgiving, but I always think that rosés in general are great with Thanksgiving. Again, we're going towards that lighter, turkey meat. This one has a lot of that acidity, so I think it pairs really well with cranberry, with kind of tartness, where you kind of find some common ground between it. So yeah, pretty versatile. I think the drier style of rosé also gives it kind of a bigger, palate combination of things to pair it with. Everybody hear me okay out there?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, yeah, so we love rosé. We make about 150 cases of this a year, and then we also do a straight Barbera. We've been sticking with this grape, so 100% Barbera, very unique, and then again, kind of that off-dry style. Okay, so next wine, I'm going to set that to the side. Next wine, we're going to go to Albarino, and this one has a great history. Here in Washington, and we kind of feel like we're some of the pioneers as far as helping bring more diversity, more varietals into Washington State, into the Horse Heaven Hills. And Albarino has been one that has really exceeded our expectations and excelled. And Washington State has taken notice, and this varietal has been planted quite a bit over the past few years. So. Originally, the grapes came from Iberian, so you're talking Spain or Portugal. So a lot of times this wine is what it does like is kind of a hot season. So it's in between a Pinot Grigio and a Sauvignon Blanc. It has great fruit texture, but it also has really nice acidity. So a great seafood wine, very refreshing. So yeah, if you're doing clams, or just pretty much any seafood, fish, it's really got a great mix for that. So I'm gonna pull a bottle out on the. Okay, so I was saying I wish we had smell-o-vision because it smells great back here. We got all these nice barrels. These are full of this year's harvest. So 2020 red wines, Sangioveses, Barbera, Grenache. More Barbera, lots of Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, more Vedra, just tons and tons of great stuff back here. Hopefully in the spring or summer here next year, you guys want to come travel and visit us. We love sharing wine from barrels. And then as Mike kind of takes back here, we're going to show you this concrete tank. So Albarino, I was mentioning out there, originally a Spanish varietal. And we've been making it in 100% stainless steel. And then 2 years ago, we started incorporating a little bit of concrete into our production technique. So this is a concrete tank in this shape we call a dolia. So it's kind of like an elongated egg. And so we're fermenting, we fermented Albarino in here. And the whole idea behind this is we're really trying to stay with that fruit forward style to really bring out the expression of fruit. And this also sort of helps build a lot of mouthfeel and body and richness. It's a very porous product. Concrete lets a lot of oxygen in there during our fermentation. So we're building up mouthfeel. We're maintaining and trying to retain as much of those fruit flavors that we can. Whereas opposed to stainless steel, where it's really, really fruit driven, this also brings in that minerality, a little earthiness. So just kind of another layer, a little more complexity into the wine. And the wine that you guys will be tasting today is our stainless steel version. Actually, it blended in a little bit of concrete Albarino into it. And we actually blended a little Roussanne and Chardonnay. First year that we've done that, just a couple of percentage points.
Justin.
I've always really, really loved the Albarino. It's definitely one of the varietals that brought me here, that I was really intrigued to get an opportunity to work with and make. There's over 5,000 different grape varietals, and we all kind of know the big popular ones of, Chardonnay, Cabernet, and Merlot. But after you've made all the other ones, it's kind of fun to play with different stuff. And Albarino is a grape that I've always enjoyed. So it's been a lot of fun to make it and kind of expand our production techniques and styles over the past couple of years. Now, let me flip this around, Mike. Tell them a little bit about when you planted.
Oh yeah, so we planted our first Albarino in 2006. We were actually the first vineyard in Washington State to plant Albarino, and it became a success very quickly. We actually maybe sell a touch less today than we did then, but it is a very popular variety. But from our Albarino, we've planted many other small varieties, like Justin was saying, and all of them have done as well. When we started, everybody said, you know what, you only should plant Cab, Merlot, Syrah, and Chardonnay, kind of the basic four. And after a couple years, because I had grown so many different crops, I used to grow before I got into the grapes, at least 10 different crops every year. And usually what happened, one of them or two would make a little bit, the others would break even, and you just never could really make a lot of money or hardly make enough to support your family. But once we got into grapes, it was kind of been a continuous grow, and we've done very well at it. From our first 20 acres in 1994, believe it or not, that's grown to 1,300 acres today over a period of 26 years that we've been growing grapes. It's been a fun ride. I mean, it's not easy because when we started, we did all the work ourselves out by hand. But today we have pretty much a year-round crew of about 40 people out in the vineyard. And we only have, Justin's our one winemaker and our only full-time person here at the winery, and we have a part-time staff of usually 8 to 10 other people. Anyway, it's been fun, and the Albarino has won us awards all over the country. I mean, we have won, and one of my most exciting adventures was clear back when we first started in 2010, I think. It was our 2010 Albarino. It was our 2009 Mourvedre. We went to Denver. We went to Houston, and we had never been there before. It was our first time at the show, and we had I actually wear a belt buckle that was a champion of the class for Albarino, and another one for a Mourvedre. So my wife and I each have matching belt buckles that we won as the class champions there, our first and only time at Denver. And we're going to go back, and now we're ready.
I know, Christopher, we might need to add some belt buckles to the this Denver International competition going on here in the future.
Yeah,
I want to peek here
consider
too, as next to the orange tank, this is another concrete tank, and we are making Cabernet Sauvignon in that this year. And last year was our first year. We made a little bit in 2018. So it's kind of our third year of doing some red wines in concrete. So yeah, we are super excited about the future of things to come. Yeah. So anyway, we just love getting to play around with this concrete one. Here's a cool miniature tank. We use this tank. It actually has a little Malbec in it. So when I fill up a barrel here, all these barrels that you saw as we came in, they each hold 60 gallons of wine. So if I have 90 gallons of a grape, I need to put some of it in another vessel. So this is just a miniature tank that I can use to hold excess, and then I can use it for topping and some other stuff. So I don't know about you guys. I'm ready to taste some red wine. So we're going to make our way back into the other room here. And we'll start tasting a couple of reds.
Yeah, as we go in there, as he's tell a little bit more of our history. Actually, here's a picture of our vineyard, and here's a picture back one year I was out there on the horseback, and they took a nice picture of looking off across the horse heavens here. And while he's doing it, I'm looking around
I'm back over here now. So
around the tasting room as he breaks open the.
Okay, so next up we got Primitivo and our Tempranillo. So we got a bunch of different labels for you guys to look at today, lots of new stuff. So we are doing the Primitivo first, our 2015 vintage Primitivo. And for those of you that are not as familiar with Primitivo, it is Italian varietal similar to Zinfandel. And we've been making it for a long time. It's early ripening red grape. So it's one of the earlier things that we pick. And it has just really, really nice flavor intensity, kind of a little bit larger sized berries. It is a red wine that you will find tends to have a little bit higher alcohol percentage. If you look at Primotivos and Zinfandels kind of across the board. So this is another grape I had never made before I started working here, but I've always loved Italian varietals. I grew up in Virginia and moved to Washington. Well, I moved to California first, and that's kind of where I got into winemaking and grape growing, and then moved up here. But before that, I'd worked in an Italian restaurant and drank a lot of Chianti, Chateau, Barbera, and then now up here in Washington, getting to make all these great wines is a lot of fun. But so the Primitivo, this one has a little bit of a blend. So I've been finding that Merlot really helps round out the mid palate of it. So working with one vineyard site here at Coyote Canyon as the winemaker, I'm always looking for ways to make our wines more complex and more interesting. So since I'm not able to blend, Primitivo from 3 vineyards, a lot of times I'm either looking to add other varietals to add that depth and complexity, or when I'm, after I've fermented my wines, I will age them in different barrels, maybe some American, some French, maybe some brand new French in a 5-year-old barrel, and each of those will give me slightly different components. So even when I'm working with just one grape, like a Primitivo, and I'm automatically, I'm thinking, how can I make this wine more complex and interesting? And then a year down the road, after that wine is aged on its own, I will start doing what I just call blending trials. I'll take take samples of my different varietals that I have, and sit down and start tasting them and see how they work together, how those layers kind of build on each other. The Primitivo has a really intensity, and because it's a little bit higher sugar content when we pick it, and it gives us that higher alcohol content, what I'm really looking for is, because I know it's going to have that spice, alcohol can come off as heat or spice. If you think about, like liquor, like taking, vodka or whiskey, right? You can really, really get that spiciness. So Primitivo brings in a touch of that. We're not quite as high. So I'm looking to try to accentuate the fruit, make sure I have enough oak in there that you're not left overly with that one component of spice. So I've been blending in Merlot, and this one has a little bit of Barbera in it as well. You want to taste some? What are you doing over there?
I lost my connection.
Oh, we lost Mike.
So
No.
Yep, we lost him.
yeah, I will taste. I'll try to read a little bit about that.
Okay, yeah, so Primitivo, I think, is a great wine all on its own. It is a nice food wine as well, so I think about that kind of almost sweet sugar intensity coming on, and that spice at the finish. So I'm thinking, definitely you can go with something a little bit heavier. I'm not sure that this is exactly your steak wine, but it's still got some nice body to pair up with a red meat. Something maybe grilled. We are this is the 2015 vintage Primitivo. So another thing that we here at Coyote Canyon are always trying to do is we're showing you guys a really small exclusive example of what's happening in the Horse Heaven Hills, and we're really interested in how each of those vintages impact the wines. So 15 was the hottest year on record here in Washington. So there was for a varietal that likes to get ripe, like a Primitivo, it was something that we picked a little bit earlier. So this one, 15.2% alcohol, which is actually where it normally kind of falls. It's been up to 15.4, whereas most of my reds, I'm looking more in that 14% range. So,
how long could you lay that bottle down? The 2015 would be, I mean, most cabs you can lay down 10 plus years, right?
Yeah. So I think Primitivo is historically not a wine that is being aged as long. We were just tasting some 2008 vintage that was still tasting really nice. So that, that's 12 years old. So
Okay.
I will mention that kind of our Coyote Canyon tier wines here. The corks that we're using, we use a different grade of cork for our Coyote core versus the HH that we'll taste at the end. So the cork standard on this Primitivo should last for 15 years if stored correctly, possibly a little bit more or less. But yeah, I would say kind of like around that 10-year mark would be kind of where I would, definitely be sampling and tasting to see if it was still holding up. Kind of a deal. Sometimes they will last a little bit longer, but I think for this varietal Primitivos are kind of more in that, like right now we're 5 years old, drinking really, really nice. Over the next 3 years, I think it's going to continue to be at its peak drinking, but you get a little bit more out of it.
So,
You want to say something?
Yeah, you were kind of going to jump back and forth, and you'll have to connect me again.
I did.
But all I was going to say is, Coyote Canyon Winery, how we got our name, right through the center of our vineyard is a canyon, and that canyon has always been called Coyote Canyon. And so that's where we got our name. And if you ever come to visit our winery, you'll see on our glasses, we have the canyon with the coyote in it, and we got the sun and the moon, like you'll see kind of on our label, and we got the 3 crosses. So if you ever come and see in the center of our vineyard, we got a 40-foot cross with 2 shorter crosses either side. Pretty exciting to see. Yeah. And we're blessed to have from there a view of the entire horse heaven, so we can at least see the location, even if you're looking clear across the horse heaven, all the other vineyards of the horse heaven, except for the ones clear to the far east as far as you can go, or the ones clear over to the west. But we have a view that's unbelievable.
I can attest to that.
The thing that makes our vineyard very outstanding as one of the best in the world is that we have perfect heat units. We have the perfect heat units for growing and ripening almost any type of grape. That's why we're so diversified. The Horse Heaven Hills, the last time I looked, grows 26 varieties. We have 26 varieties planted. But I know the one that we don't have, so there's actually more. We haven't ever planted Carmenere, is one that our neighbors have. And we were probably the first to plant many of these varieties on the Horse Heaven. And when we first started, of course, we did a lot of research to pick out just the right location. So when we're talking about the Barbera, we picked out just the right location for the Barbera because it's got that soft skin. We were able to put it on a slope that faces away from the sun to help protect it from that, the soft skin makes it easy to burn. And we were able to also to adapt our vineyard to plant the right varieties in the right places. And we're just doing these Primitivo. So we can grow a lot of Italian varieties. And so
Spanish too.
We were able to go to Italy last year in May. And it was so much fun because we were looking at our grapes right before we left, and we got over there, and the stages our grapes were in were just last year, we were just a few days later. This year, talking to people, we were just a few days earlier. So very, very close to the same growth stages. And all of our Italian varietals just do very, very well. And like our Primitivo, our Sangiovese, and our Barbera have many times won class champions all over the country. In fact, we had on our Sangiovese last year, we had the best of show in the Cascadia wine competition, which is over probably in the 12 over 1,500 wines. So it was pretty exciting.
Yeah, that was super exciting. Super exciting.
Yeah. Take turns here.
Okay, so yeah, we've made it through 3. We got 3 more wines to go here. Looks like we're right on track there.